There are moments in life when everything seems to rush at you. Pressures from the world, voices from the past, burdens from the unknown future. Your heart races, your mind spins, and your soul trembles. But I tell you today, if you want to receive everything your heart truly desires, you must learn the divine secret that so many overlook. Relax. Be still in your spirit. Calm your soul before God. For in that stillness, in that sacred pause, you invite the power of God to move mountains on your behalf. The world teaches you to hustle, to fight, to grab what you want. But God, in His infinite wisdom, often asks us to do the opposite, to step back, to trust, to let go, so that He may take over. You see, true strength is not found in frantic effort. It is found in surrendered stillness. It is found in the quiet confidence that God knows your name, knows your need, and knows exactly when to release what is yours. You don't need to exhaust your spirit chasing after what God has already assigned to you. When you relax, when you rest in the assurance of His will, you open the door for miracles. You unlock blessings that no effort could ever achieve. The most powerful position in life is the one on your knees. Not begging, but trusting. Not striving, but surrendering. Many are running, clawing, competing, comparing, constantly moving from one goal to another, yet never satisfied. They're chasing money, relationships, recognition, and they believe that only through endless effort will they succeed. But the soul is not built to carry that kind of pressure. It is only when we pause and realign with God that we realize what matters most was never far. It was waiting for us to be still. If the heart is restless, nothing you gain will ever satisfy. But when your heart is at peace with God, even the smallest thing becomes a blessing. The greatest treasures of life, peace, favor, purpose, fulfillment are not taken by force. They are received in faith. Some of you have been praying for years, waiting, hoping, fasting, pleading. But I ask you today, have you tried relaxing in the presence of God? Have you tried letting go of your anxious grip and simply telling Him, God, I trust you? Because sometimes the answer doesn't come through your intensity. It comes through your peace. Sometimes God waits for you to stop running so He can begin moving. Sometimes the door won't open until you stop banging on it and quietly sit before it in faith, knowing that if it's meant to be yours, God Himself will turn the key. There is a holy kind of rest that is not laziness, not apathy, but divine confidence. It says, even if nothing changes today, I know God is working. I know He's aligning the right people, the right opportunities, the right timing. That kind of rest is powerful. That kind of rest releases angels. That kind of rest brings clarity. Because when your spirit is calm, you begin to hear the voice of God more clearly. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of culture, but the voice of purpose and direction. Look around at nature. The rivers do not rush anxiously, yet they reach their destination. The stars do not compete to shine, yet each holds its place in the heavens. The sun does not rise early or late, yet it brings light to the world every single day. God has built balance and order into everything He created. And you, who are made in His image, are not meant to live in panic and pressure. You are meant to live in divine alignment. There is power in calm. There is glory in rest. There is victory in trust. And trust is what it all comes down to. Do you trust that God has your back? Do you believe that He's not just watching from a distance, but orchestrating things in your favor? Because if you do, then you don't need to chase after what's already chasing you. Favor follows faith. Breakthroughs follow belief. When you relax in the presence of God, you position yourself to receive what is already yours in the Spirit. You stop striving for crumbs and begin preparing for the feast He's been setting in your honor. But if your hands are full of worry, how will you receive what He is trying to place in them? Many people lose what was meant for them simply because they didn't know how to be still. They rushed ahead. They tried to force it. They let fear dictate their pace. But faith is not afraid to wait. Faith is not afraid to rest. Faith knows that when God moves, no man can stop him, and when God says now, nothing can delay him. That's why when you relax, not in the flesh, but in the spirit, you activate a heavenly force that goes before you, making crooked paths straight and turning impossible situations into testimonies. Some of you are tired, not because you've worked too much, but because you've trusted too little. You've placed the weight of your future on your own shoulders, forgetting that it is God who carries you. Relax. Let Him lift it. Let Him handle what you cannot. Stop trying to control what was never in your hands to begin with. That relationship, hand it to God. That job, hand it to God. That dream that seems so far off, hand it to God. And then breathe. Breathe, knowing that the one who created the universe is not confused about your life. There is a kind of peace that comes when you stop begging for signs and start believing in the unseen. When you know that God is not slow, He is strategic. When you believe that the delays are not denials, but divine development. Sometimes God is preparing you for the blessing just as much as He is preparing the blessing for you. And if you receive it too early, it may crush you. That's why He says, be still. That's why He tells you to wait. Not because He's forgotten you, but because He's perfecting what concerns you. The world honors those who never rest. They call them hustlers. But heaven honors those who rest in God. They are called the faithful. And the faithful always inherit the promise. They don't miss it, they don't lose it, because they understand this one truth. When you stop trying to force your way, God makes a way. And His way is always better. His way doesn't bring burnout, it brings peace. His way doesn't lead to emptiness, it leads to overflow. But it starts with trust, it starts with surrender. It starts with relaxing the grip of fear and picking up the mantle of faith. You've cried enough, you've worried enough, you've begged long enough. Now is the time to rest in God, to lean into Him like never before, to say, God, you see what I cannot, you know what I do not. So I will stop wrestling and I will start resting. And I promise you this, when you relax in Him, He begins to work for you in ways you could never imagine. The closed doors begin to open. The lost opportunities begin to return. The broken pieces begin to form a masterpiece. Not because you forced it, but because you trusted. And trust is never passive. It is the most powerful action a soul can take. Trusting God is not doing nothing, it is doing the most. It's declaring to the heavens and to every enemy of your destiny that you believe that no matter what the world says, you are anchored in the unseen, that your confidence is not in what you have, but in who has you. And when you live like that, when you walk with that kind of peace, everything changes. You don't just survive, you thrive. You don't just get through, you rise above. God has not called you to carry every burden. He has called you to cast it. And when you do, when you release what's in your hands, He releases what's in His. And what He holds is far greater than anything you could ever build with your own effort. That's why the most anointed people are not the busiest, they are the most surrendered. They understand the power of letting go. They know the secret of divine flow, that everything they need will come, not when they chase it, but when they align with the rhythm of God. When you truly relax in your soul, you begin to see that life is not a race to be won, but a journey to be aligned with the will of God. Every moment, every delay, every unanswered question becomes part of a greater orchestration. God does not operate on the chaotic timelines of this world. He moves according to divine design, eternal timing, and perfect knowledge. While you fret about what you do not yet have, God is preparing what you are not yet ready to receive. And so He teaches you not through speed, but through stillness, not through noise, but through silence. That's why learning to relax in God is not weakness, it is wisdom, it is spiritual maturity. It is the recognition that God's silence is not absence, it is preparation. There is a storm that brews in the heart of every human being who thinks they must do it all, fix it all, be it all. That storm is fueled by fear, anxiety, pride, and doubt. But God never created you to live in the eye of that storm. He called you to stand above it. And the only way to rise above the chaos is to anchor yourself in divine trust. That trust is not loud, it is quiet and unwavering. It is the voice within you that says, even if I don't see the way, God is making the way. Even if I feel alone, God is closer than my breath. Even if I don't understand, God knows exactly what He's doing. It is in this posture of trust where transformation begins. Your thoughts shift from worry to worship, your mind moves from panic to peace, and your steps begin to align with divine timing. The reason so many people feel like they're constantly hitting walls is not because the path is wrong, but because the pace is wrong. God never asked you to run ahead of His will, He asked you to walk with Him, to listen, to rest, to obey. And sometimes that obedience looks like doing nothing but waiting. Waiting with faith, waiting with peace, waiting with a heart fully surrendered. You are not forgotten, you are not overlooked. The delay you face is not a rejection, it is a sacred pause, a divine intermission where God rearranges everything for your benefit. And if you fight the stillness, you may miss the direction. Because often God will not shout above your noise. He will wait until you are quiet enough to hear Him. This is why you must relax, not just physically, but spiritually. You must stop carrying the burdens that belong to God. He does not need your worry, He needs your worship. He does not require your stress, He asks for your surrender. There is a weight that lifts when you say, God, this is too much for me, so I give it to you. And when you mean it, when you truly release it, something miraculous happens. Doors open, burdens lift, and paths that were once blocked become clear, not because you fought harder, but because you let God fight for you. You see, many blessings are held back not because God is withholding, but because you haven't made room for them. Your hands are too full of fear. Your schedule is too packed with noise. Your heart is too burdened with self-reliance. But when you relax, when you clear the clutter of anxiety, God rushes in. He is not impressed by how much you can carry. He is moved by how much you're willing to lay down. The most powerful people in the world are not the ones who shout the loudest or work the hardest, but those who are in perfect alignment with the will of God, and that alignment comes through peace. A peace that says, God, I trust you more than I trust my understanding. I choose rest over worry, surrender over striving, patience over panic. That is the kind of heart God honors. That is the kind of spirit He blesses. Look back at your life, the moments where you were the most anxious, the most desperate, the most restless. Did they bring you peace, or did they drain your spirit? Now look at the moments where you let go, where you said, God, if this is your will, then I surrender to it. Weren't those the moments when everything began to shift? When things started to fall into place, not because of your effort, but because of your surrender? That is the sacred pattern of faith. Let go and let God lead. And remember, relaxing in God does not mean giving up on your dreams. It means trusting that God is the keeper of those dreams. It means believing that what is meant for you will not miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you. God's plans are not fragile. His timing is not flawed. His blessings do not require your manipulation. They require your trust. So stop trying to control what only God can orchestrate. Stop tying yourself to outcomes. Detach from the need to understand everything and anchor yourself in the knowledge that God understands everything. There is a place in the soul where anxiety cannot survive. It is the place where you meet God face to face, not in the noise of performance, but in the quiet of trust. There you are reminded that you are not what you do, not what you have, not what people say about you. You are who God created you to be. Fearfully, wonderfully, purposefully made. You don't need to chase validation. You don't need to impress the world. You need only to rest in your Creator. And when you do, a peace descends like rain on a dry land. A peace that cleanses, restores, and renews. Let God renew you. Let Him strengthen you, not through constant activity, but through divine rest. Stop trying to outrun the process. Stop comparing your pace to others. What God is doing in your life is unique. You are not behind. You are not late. You are exactly where God needs you to be. And even if you feel stuck, even if you feel like nothing is moving, understand this: God does His greatest work in stillness, silence, in the soil where nothing seems to be growing, but deep roots are forming beneath the surface. And yet there are those who still believe that peace is only for the privileged, that rest is for the lazy, that stillness is for those who've given up. But I declare to you with every fiber of conviction, peace is for the obedient, stillness is for the wise, rest is for the one who trusts that God is enough. You do not rest because the journey is over. You rest because you know who walks with you. You relax not because the battle is finished, but because you know that the battle is not yours but God's. And when you truly believe that, your soul stops shaking, your hands unclench, your eyes lift, not to the problem, but to the provider. What the world teaches you is to grind, to press, to push harder when things get tough. But what God teaches is that when the load gets heavier, you go lower. You humble yourself. You submit the pressure at His feet. You say, God, if you brought me this far, you won't leave me now. If you opened one door, you will open another. When you walk in faith, you're not walking alone. When you rest in God, you're not being passive. You're declaring spiritual war against the forces that want you to burn out, give up, and forget your purpose. Relaxing in God is not ignoring your responsibilities. It is doing them with a heart that is not ruled by fear. It's applying for that job, but trusting that God decides the outcome. It's taking care of your family, but knowing that God is your ultimate sustainer. It's showing up every day not to impress the world, but to honor the one who gave you life. That kind of relaxation does not lead to laziness. It leads to clarity. You start to see where your energy should go. You stop trying to control everything and start moving only where God leads. Some of you are exhausted because you've been trying to do God's job. You've been playing the role of the provider, the protector, the planner, the judge, but there is only one who holds that authority. And when you release your false control, when you step down from the throne of your own life and let God sit where He belongs, peace returns like a river. Then, and only then, do you begin to see that you were never meant to fix it all. You were meant to trust the one who can. Do you know why you haven't seen your breakthrough yet? It's not because God has forgotten you. It's because you've been blocking what He wants to send by holding too tightly to your version of the plan. You're so focused on what you think it should look like that you're missing what He's trying to give you. But when you relax, when you let your heart breathe and say, God, do it your way, you allow the unseen to take form. You allow destiny to align with divine timing. You let go of counterfeit blessings to make room for the real ones. And yes, there will be moments where you'll be tempted to take matters into your own hands again. You'll look at others who seem ahead, and the urge to panic will rise up. But hear me clearly. Comparison is the thief of peace. The moment you take your eyes off what God is doing in you and start focusing on what He's doing in them, you lose your rhythm. And when you lose your rhythm, you start forcing things. And when you start forcing things, you fall out of favor. Because God blesses order, not chaos. You don't need to worry about who's getting married before you, who's getting richer before you, who's getting recognized before you. God didn't forget you. He's preserving you. Because what He has for you is not common, it's not ordinary, it's not quick or cheap. It's custom made, and anything custom takes time. So stop fighting the process and start trusting the Creator. Stop running after everything and let the right things start running toward you. This is not the time to panic. This is the time to plant yourself deeper in trust. Because when your roots are in God, your leaves will not wither in the heat of delay. When your foundation is in the Almighty, no storm will shake you. And when your eyes are fixed on God, you will see what others miss. You will hear the quiet instructions, the divine nudges, the sacred whispers that lead you to places no map can guide you. That's the reward of rest, clarity. God doesn't shout over noise. He whispers to the still. Let me ask you this. What would happen if you truly believed that nothing good would ever pass you by? That anything meant for you would find you? Not when you're stressed, not when you're anxious, but when you are at peace with God's pace? That's not fantasy. That's the promise of those who walk in surrender. They may not move the fastest, but they always end up exactly where they were meant to be, because their steps are not based on pressure, they are based on divine instruction. So yes, relax. Let people think you're being too calm. Let them wonder why you're not rushing like everyone else. Let them question your peace. Because when your breakthrough comes, and it will, they'll understand. They'll see that your calm was not foolishness, it was faith. They'll realize that your peace was not passivity, it was power. Because God always justifies those who trust in Him. He always vindicates the ones who wait. And waiting is not weakness, waiting is preparation. A farmer doesn't dig up the seed every day to check on it. He waters it, he watches it, and he trusts the process. That's what your waiting is doing, watering your faith, strengthening your endurance, refining your character, so that when the harvest comes, you don't just receive it, you sustain it. Because what God gives you, He also prepares you for. That's why rushing will never get you what resting can. Because rest reveals your readiness. When you're anxious, you forget who God is. You reduce the Creator of the heavens to your level of impatience. But when you are at peace, you magnify God. You exalt His power above your need. You lift His will above your worry. And that's when doors swing open, that's when favor follows, that's when heaven moves. Not because you shouted the loudest, but because you trusted the deepest. You don't need to convince God to bless you, you just need to get in position to receive. And the position is peace. The posture is surrender. The expression is trust. That's where the real power is. That's the secret most people never discover. That the most successful, the most fulfilled, the most anointed people are not always the busiest. They are the most rested in God. They move with purpose. They walk in wisdom. They don't chase, they attract. Because they are aligned. And alignment always beats ambition. And now I tell you, there is a deeper revelation that comes when you truly make peace with God's pace. It's not just about relaxing your body or even calming your thoughts. It's about entering into a sacred dimension of trust where you realize that timing is not yours, it is God's. the timing of your promotion, the timing of your healing, the timing of your vindication. All of it is governed not by chance, not by coincidence, but by the hands of the Almighty, who sees the end from the beginning and the beginning from the end. You must stop living like life is something you have to figure out on your own. You were never created to carry the burden of your own destiny. God didn't design you to be the architect of every detail. You are not God, you are His creation, and your greatest strength will be found in the moment you truly accept this truth. You are not in control, and that's the most freeing thing you will ever realize. Because once you release the illusion of control, God can begin to reveal the divine orchestration already taking place behind the curtain of your circumstances. Let me tell you, there are blessings already in motion that your eyes have not yet seen. There are solutions to problems that haven't even reached you yet. There are provisions being built in secret, not because of your performance, but because of your positioning. And the position God requires is not a frantic hustle, it's faith. Not inaction, but alignment. Because it's possible to be busy and still be disobedient. It's possible to be active and still be far from the will of God, but when your spirit is in tune with His direction, your steps become strategic, your words become anointed, and your rest becomes a weapon. You see, the enemy wants to steal your rest because he knows that in rest, your discernment becomes sharp. In rest, your hearing becomes clear. In rest, your spirit becomes sensitive to God's movement. That's why so many are agitated, confused, doubtful. It's not because they don't have access to God. It's because they haven't created the silence necessary to hear Him. But when you quiet the distractions, when you turn down the volume of fear, when you detach from the endless noise of comparison and anxiety, you begin to hear something deeper. The whisper of destiny. And that whisper doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It doesn't demand that you have all the answers. It simply calls you to trust, to believe that even when the night is long and the way is unclear, God is still working. He is still weaving every delay, every setback, every closed door into something far greater than you imagine. Sometimes what feels like rejection is simply redirection. Sometimes the thing you're begging God to do now is something He's intentionally withholding because He knows what's ahead and He's protecting you. So don't mistake the silence of God for the absence of God. Don't interpret a closed door as a divine no. It might just be a not yet. And if you'll stay in faith, if you'll hold your peace, if you'll relax into the rhythm of trust, you'll see that the very things you thought were being denied are actually being prepared for a more perfect time. God is never early and He is never late. He moves with precision. He answers with perfection. He gives not just what you ask for, but what your soul truly needs. Some of you have cried, why haven't I seen it yet? Why is this taking so long? Why do I feel stuck? And I say to you, it's not because God has turned away, it's because He's building something deeper inside of you. He's teaching you to wait well, to live with expectation, not anxiety, to prepare your inner world to carry what your outer world will soon experience. He's not just working around you, He's working in you. And when the time comes, you won't just receive the blessing, you'll be ready to handle it. Because a blessing given too soon becomes a burden, a door opened too early becomes a trap, and a dream fulfilled without maturity becomes a curse. That's why God is careful. That's why He sometimes says, wait. Not because He delights in your frustration, but because He delights in your future. And if you could see what He's protecting you from, you would thank Him for every delay. If you could glimpse the weight of what's ahead, you'd praise Him for every silent season. Because while you've been asking for what's good, God has been preparing what is best. So I say again, relax, breathe, let go of the timeline you've built in your head, Let go of the pressure to be where someone else is. Your journey is not theirs. Your timing is not theirs. Your purpose is not theirs. And that's the beauty of it. What God has written for you cannot be stolen, rushed, or missed. The only thing that can delay it is your resistance to rest. When you try to force open what God has closed, you may find yourself drained, discouraged, and distant from the very peace that was promised to you. But the moment you step back, the moment you say, God, I choose your pace over mine, your way over mine, your will above mine, that's when the shift begins. Not always immediately, not always visibly, but spiritually, something breaks open. Because God honors those who trust Him. He elevates those who wait on Him. He pours out abundance on those who rest under His covering, knowing that in their stillness, He is moving. You want to see miracles? Learn to be still. You want to receive answers? Learn to listen. You want to walk in divine timing? Learn to wait, not passively, but actively, with praise, with faith, with expectation. Let your relaxation be a declaration of your belief that God is not done with you yet, that what He started, He will finish, that what He promised, He will perform, that what He prepared for you is on its way, not because you chased it, but because you trusted for it. And when it comes, and it will, you'll look back and realize that every moment you chose peace over panic was a seed that birthed your harvest. Every time you said, I will not worry, I will worship, you moved the heavens. Every breath of surrender, every step of obedience, every act of faith brought you closer, not to what you wanted, but to what God always knew you needed. And that, my friend, is where everything changes. And now I urge you to reflect, truly reflect on what it means to rest, not just with your body, but with your spirit, to relax in the depth of your soul. Because some of you have grown weary, not from the work of your hands, but from the war in your mind, the constant thoughts, the racing doubts, the whispers of not enough, the echoes of too late, the torment of what if. These are not just mental battles, they are spiritual attacks sent to steal your focus, your confidence, and your peace. But God, in His mercy, is calling you into a different realm, a higher dimension of trust where anxiety cannot enter and fear cannot speak. You see, peace is not the absence of noise, it is the presence of God within the noise. And when you carry God within you, when your heart is saturated with the knowledge that He is in full control, no storm on the outside can shake the stillness within. The enemy's greatest weapon is not disaster, it is distraction. If he can keep you busy with worry, hurried with fear, and pressed with pressure, he can keep you from hearing what God is whispering. But when you choose stillness, when you choose to relax in God's sovereignty, you render the enemy powerless, because your peace becomes your shield. Your calm becomes your declaration of war against chaos. There is a supernatural order that begins to unfold when you remove your hands from the wheel and say with every fiber of your being, God, I trust you more than I trust myself. That's not weakness, that's wisdom, that's maturity, that's spiritual courage. Because only the brave can truly let go. Only the spiritually mature can choose to rest when the world demands they panic. Only those who truly know God can say, even if everything falls apart around me, I will not be moved, for I am not held up by my circumstances, but by the invisible hand of the Almighty. And I speak this into your spirit now. Some of you have been grinding, striving, praying with clenched fists, fasting with fearful hearts, pushing doors that won't open, and crying out, why is nothing changing? And the answer is this: because you have not yet surrendered the weight. You have given God your words, but not your worry. You have offered Him your praise, but not your pressure. You have spoken of faith, but lived in fear. And God, in His divine love, is not punishing you. He is inviting you to a rest so deep, so sacred, so holy, that it shifts your entire atmosphere. When you enter that rest, You stop begging and start believing. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop surviving and start thriving, not because life became easier, but because your soul became anchored. Anchored in the truth that God is not watching your life unfold like a spectator. He is writing it like a master author. Every chapter, every page, every punctuation mark is intentional. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. And nothing is outside of His reach. The pain, the delay, the heartbreak, the confusion, it's all being used, being molded, being transformed into something far greater than your finite mind can grasp. And yes, I know you've waited, I know you've questioned, I know you've wondered if God even hears you. But I declare to you today, He hears, He sees, and He is nearer than you think. But sometimes He waits for your silence before He speaks. Sometimes He waits for your surrender before He sends. Sometimes the greatest answer is not in what He gives, but in what He takes. The burden, the fear, the lie that you have to earn what He has already prepared. God is not withholding from you out of cruelty. He is holding it back because He's perfecting the vessel that must carry the blessing. He knows what you don't. He sees what you can't. And when you try to take what is not yet ready, you rob yourself of the fullness of what was meant to be. That's why the command is simple, be still. That's not a suggestion, that's not a motivational quote. That is a divine instruction that holds the power to unlock what has been locked for years. There are things in your life that are not broken, they are just paused. They are on divine hold while God finishes what you cannot see. And the moment you stop fighting the delay and start trusting the delay is the moment the spiritual tides begin to turn. God does not operate in panic. He is not hurried. And if you are made in His image, neither should you be. Learn to walk with the calm of someone who knows that everything they need is already in motion. Learn to rest like one who knows their name is written in the plan of God. Because when you trust God deeply, you begin to live differently. You don't speak from fear, you speak from faith. You don't act from desperation, you act from direction. You don't run after every opportunity, you wait for the one that has your name on it. And when people ask, why are you so calm? You'll say, because I know who holds my life. I know who guides my steps. And I know that what's meant for me will never pass me by. Let me tell you, the greatest victories are not always loud. Sometimes the greatest victory is peace in a storm. A calm spirit in a world that's spiraling. A heart that smiles in the waiting. That's when the enemy knows he's lost. When you're not shaken by what should have shaken you. When you're not bitter about what you lost, because you know God will restore better. When you're not afraid of what's ahead, because you know God has already gone before you. And when you reach that level of trust, your prayers begin to change. They're no longer frantic, they're filled with quiet confidence. You no longer cry out in panic, you speak with authority knowing you are heard. Your faith is no longer conditional, it's unwavering. You don't just believe when things go right. You believe when nothing makes sense, because your hope is not in outcomes, it's in God Himself. And that, my friend, is the place where true life begins. Not a life free from struggle, but a life filled with strength. Not a life absent of storms, but a life anchored in peace. Not a life without delay, but a life full of divine timing. And it all begins the moment you relax. Not from indifference, but from unshakable faith. The moment you say, God, I give it back to you, I will move when you say move. I will speak when you say speak. Until then, I will rest in your plan. Because peace is power, rest is strategy, and surrender is the highest form of strength. When you master these, when you truly relax into the arms of the Almighty, you won't just receive the things you prayed for, you'll become the person He created you to be. Not a product of panic, but a vessel of peace. Not a captive of fear, but a warrior of trust. And when you walk like that, talk like that, live like that, the world takes notice, because the light of a relaxed, God-centered soul cannot be ignored. And now let this truth be written on the tablets of your heart. When your spirit truly rests in God, the world no longer has power over you. The timelines of society, the expectations of others, the lies of fear, they begin to lose their grip because you've anchored your hope in something eternal, something immovable, something no eye can see and no hand can alter, the will of God Almighty. That will is not vague. That will is not uncertain. It is deliberate. It is sovereign. It is unstoppable. And when you align your soul with that will, the chaos outside may rage, but the calm within will stand unshaken. Do not mistake silence from God as inactivity.